Oh, hey there. If you're looking for a DSLR this year, 2017 or early 2018, I've got the perfect DSLR for you. I've just purchased this camera and I've been using it for a couple of weeks now, and I truly think it's probably one of the best DSLRs out there at the moment for sure, and ever has been out there. It's made by Nikon and it's a crop sensor. The Nikon D500. For me, I don't need full frame because I don't want those large files, and I don't actually see any need for me to have that extra detail. And I think there's many benefits to having a smaller body and smaller file size, to be honest. When I was buying my new camera, it was between this particular camera and some Fuji films, the X-T2, and the new Olympus, and some of the Sonys, lots of mirrorless cameras, small mirrorless cameras, because I wanted 50% photos and 50% video, and loads of other people in the same situation. They want a bit of video and a bit of photography. And for me, the photography side on the mirrorless cameras just isn't quite there. There's something about the ergonomics and the handling of it that just doesn't feel right for a stills camera. So I stuck with a DSLR, and I stuck with something that may not be known to be as good for video, but definitely for stills it's up there with the best. It does 4K, which is really important, if it's important to you. And important to me, it does 1080 at 60 frames, which is what I wanted. I wanted that tiny bit of slow-mo just for those types of shots. I'll show you some test footage I've done. This is at 1080 at 60 frames, most of which is slowed down. When you're out and about shooting with this for film, the screen's really good, super high resolution. Not much glare, it's really useful in the sun and stuff. Again, the body just feels really rugged, so you don't mind climbing up a bit of a mountain or bashing against a rock a little bit. It feels pretty safe, and it feels like it's going to last a long time. So that's good. You can throw it in a bag and it feels pretty happy in there. Out and about, it's weatherproof, so again, if it starts raining, it doesn't matter. And I do a lot of films and photography on the coast and in the moors and all these places that nature is quite prominent, and that is really useful for me, knowing that it's going to be safe, and it's not going to matter if a bit of water falls on it or if I drop it, basically. It's amazing for stills because it's Nikon and it's rapid. You've got 10 frames per second. So I'll just come and show you what it sounds like at 10 frames per second. I mean, it's pretty rapid, basically. I mean, you can look at the steps on the stills. There's so much I can't even begin to talk about. First of all, the way it feels in your hand is just an absolute winner straight away. That was the first thing I noticed. Just it holds amazingly well, and it holds amazingly well when you're out shooting, and it just feels rugged and ready, and you can throw it in a bag without worrying too much. Also, the obvious other benefit is the screen. It doesn't flip all the way out, but it does go all the way up and all the way down for high and low shots, and that's incredibly useful for film and for photography if you're going to use the viewfinder. So yeah, I was looking for something that I could make films with, but I could also not have to swap over and use a different camera for stills. I wanted both in one package, and obviously Canon can do this very well. We've got the 5D Mark III and Mark IV. So in that price range, 5D Mark IV is pretty up there, but I think the D500 retails at about 1,700 for the body, that's pounds, which is a good few hundred less than the 5D Mark IV. All the layout for all the buttons is really quite good. Took me a little while to get used to it, but if you're not used to the more modern Nikon DSLRs, it will be a change. But we've got the record button up by the shutter and the ISO button. Both are perfectly placed, actually. It's just all around a great design. So yeah, for film, the screen's great. The 4K, the 1080 at 60 is great. The 10 frames per second for photography is great for wildlife, sport, all those types. The battery is pretty good. It's not as good as some of the old Nikon DSLRs, like the D500 I'm shooting on, but it's still pretty good, and it's definitely better than the mirrorless cameras I was looking at as options. I mean, 5 times better than those. The autofocus on this is incredible. For film, not so much. You're going to use manual focus more than anything. For stills, the autofocus is great. The 3D and the face detection is all very good, and it's really quick and pretty much accurate most of the time, 8 out of 10 times. The ISO is amazing on this as well. You can go pretty high without worrying. In film, you're talking 3200 before you start seeing any major forms of noise or softness, so that's really useful. The one thing that did put me off this camera for film was it didn't have a built-in stabilizer like the Sony's and Panasonic GH5. They have the built-in 5-axis, 3-axis stabilizers, and this doesn't. That was my one big issue with this, and one of the reasons I nearly didn't get it. They have updated the firmware, and you can get a VR stabilizer in there, a digital one, which does help for kind of a tripod effect. So if you're just holding it straight and you're shooting something straight in front of you, it's fine, it's good, it takes off the shakes. But if there's any form of movement, it just doesn't work. So I've actually invested in a gimbal that's coming soon, because I think it needs it more than anything. There's post-production things you can do for that, but not necessarily as effective as the GH5 inbuilt stabilizer, which looks amazing. That was my main kind of competition, this or the GH5, so yeah, but the GH5 put me off for the stills. This is just an amazing stills camera. The D500 is kind of the baby brother of the D5, which is a massive, incredible professional camera, one that I wouldn't want to lug around. So it's up there with the best for sure. It's not too big, it's not too small, it's a perfect size I think, and I've actually purchased a grip to go with it. With the grip on, I mean it's quite big to be fair, but it's great for portrait. It's really good for portraiture. So thanks for watching guys, I'll have a full review of the D500 soon, but if you've got any questions just leave them in the comments and I'll happily answer them. I would highly suggest this camera if you are someone that does 50% film, 50% stills, or something around that number, then it's a good all-round camera for that. If you're 90% film and 10% stills, it's probably not the one for you. I would look at the GH5 or something similar. But this really pulls its weight in the still side of things, and I need that, as well as having a great film camera for when I want to make films. So yeah. Bye bye.